Hey everyone, it's Dee. Today we're just gonna be winding a ton of yarn since I went to Joann's and I bought a bunch before they closed. And I'm just going to tell you about this new book series I've been reading. I'm just gonna talk about the first book. Does anyone else like reading or listening to cozy murder mysteries? This is what I was reading, and the last clip was a screenshot if you wanted to see what it says on Goodreads. This is the first book in a series. I think there's 15 books right now. And it's called The Vampire Knitting Club. And this story, Lucy is the main character. She was born in the United States and raised there. Her parents are archaeologists. She goes to Oxford to visit her grandma after a very hard time she had. She just broke up with her boyfriend. It seems like they were together for a while. She calls him Todd the Toad. I was super surprised. I really enjoyed this book because at first I thought it was gonna be too silly because one of the lines is he stuck his salami in someone else's sandwich, and I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. That wasn't my cup of tea, but the more I read, the more I got into it. And that's only a small part of the book. The author's name is Nancy Warren, and I think she's an excellent writer. This book's atmosphere is very, very cozy, and there's like little bits of jokes and references to different things. The main character's likable enough. But anyway, she goes to Oxford to visit her grandma. Her grandma owned Cardinal Wolsey's. This was a knitting shop. She finds out grandma has passed away. It was very hard to get a hold of any of them. Her family, like I said, they're archaeologists and they're always traveling and digging up certain things. And it sounds like her parents aren't the very cozy type. They don't like settling down and owning a knitting shop. They much rather be digging, and they're very much people of science, I guess is the best way to put it. After she gets there, and she's finding out her grandma has passed away, everyone tells her that this was of natural causes and she passed peacefully in her sleep. But that's just not adding up to Lucy. She finds that the glasses that her grandma was wearing, that she always wore, they're on the floor, and she finds blood. And her grandma can't see without these glasses, so she's very confused as to how all of this happened. Later, she finds out that grandma was actually murdered or was the victim of an attempted murder. Grandma's actually undead. She was turned by her best friend who happens to be a vampire. This was the only way to save her. So Lucy becomes an amateur sleuth, and she's trying to find who tried to murder her grandma. Along the way, she makes friends with the vampires. One of them, a very handsome vampire whose name is Rafe, and a dishy detective whose name is Ian. I had to look up dishy. I thought it was more of a gossip thing. I wasn't familiar with the UK term that it means someone's very attractive. Rafe serves as a guide to Lucy after she finds out that her grandma was the victim of an attempted murder. She also finds out that grandma was helping hide the vampires under the knitting shop, and they live under the shop. So there's the vampire nest under the shop, then there's a knitting shop, and then Lucy's flat is on top. So grandma has just been helping hide them for years and years. And they use the knitting shop in the middle of the night for their knitting club, because all these vampires, they knit, and there's a very wide age range. There's a vampire, I thought she was very fun. She's a teenager. And there's a vampire who's a doctor. There's a vampire who died in Victorian times, and she still dresses like she's in the Victorian era. Sylvia, the vampire that turned her grandma, is actually an actress from the 1920s, so she looks very glamorous. I think the Victorian vampire's name is Silence, but she doesn't stop talking. She's actually, she likes very much to be the center of attention. And the teenage vampire, her name is Hester. And I think grandma's name is Agnes. If you don't want any spoilers, you should probably stop listening right here. After Lucy finds out that she inherited the knitting shop from her grandma, she also finds out that there is a condition. Agnes wanted her to run the shop for at least a year and keep it intact. That is what the will says. But all of her neighbors who also have businesses in the same street, they're saying that grandma wanted to sell to this real estate agent who seems very pushy, and she's the agent of a man who wants to buy all the shops or none at all. And a lot of the other owners of the shops around them wanted to sell. The main reason that they say is because, you know, they're not getting any younger. Lots of people don't want to manage a tea shop when they're young, or a knitting shop, although I would actually love both of those. But Lucy's very confused as to why everyone's saying that grandma was keen on selling, when the will clearly states that she wants to keep everything the same. And of course I think that this might have to do with the fact that she's hiding a bunch of vampires, because they could get in trouble if they find out that they exist. If people were to find out, I'm not sure what would happen to them. People are definitely scared of vampires. It takes her a while to trust the vampires. I think there's a part in the book where she buys a bunch of garlic and holy water and, you know, stuff to harm vampires, and it turns out that it's not working, because in this world it's not Dracula. They get their blood from like donations, and they tend to use the blood that people can't use for medical purposes. It's just how they eat. And there's even a joke in there that they're not killing animals, because that's the first thing Lucy thinks, that they're just killing animals to survive. But they're like, ew, no, that's gross. I think the only thing that happens after Lucy brings all these things to try to harm the vampires or to protect herself from them is that one of the vampires is allergic to garlic. And they're like, she doesn't trust us. But they're all very, very nice. They are all knitting her stuff at very, very rapid speed. They all make her something. They're all fighting over who's gonna make her next sweater. And Lucy uses the sweater to sell things. And she's not a very good knitter. She says that everything that she's knitting looks like it's like if she's making a sock, it looks as if it was a hedgehog. So she talks to the lady that was her grandma's old assistant. Her name is Rosemary. So she seems rather stuck up, kind of snooty. When Lucy calls her, she's like, I thought you weren't gonna call me. And Lucy was like, what do you mean? And then Rosemary informs her that Agnes had taken her key. So she wasn't exactly working for her grandma anymore before she passed away. But Lucy needs all the help she can get running the shop and trying to figure out if she's gonna stay or not. A whole lot of the book is her having doubts because she's only 27 and, you know, knitting is considered a grandma hobby. Like all the fiber arts are. But I think there's a lot of people that knit or crochet that are young. It's just, it seems like an old lady hobby, I guess. But later, as Lucy is still trying to figure out who tried to murder her grandma, Rosemary becomes kind of a suspect because she's very strange and she acts very weird. And Lucy finds out that Rosemary's son he's a former addict and he did some time for what Rosemary calls some petty theft. After Grandma's memory kind of returns a little, she remembers bits and pieces, but I think Rafe is the one that informs Lucy that Rosemary was stealing. And her grandma says, well, if that was the case, then I had to fire her. And Lucy's not giving her the keys, and she is suspicious of Rosemary. I don't think I thought she was the killer. I did think that maybe she was up to something, especially if her son needed money. After all of this, Lucy also finds out she's a witch. She has a long family history of being witches, except her mom did not want to follow that lifestyle. Mom is very much a woman of science, and no magic whatsoever will change her mind. So there's a lot of that going on, and Lucy's trying to learn to knit, and she's also trying to learn to deal with her powers because her grandma says that she needs to find a lost grimoire. Her grandma actually hid it because she was afraid someone was trying to get it, and she's very, very good friends with the neighbors next door from the tea shop. But she feels like someone is trying to take the book. And she's not wrong. I think Lucy also finds out that she has family. She has a cousin she doesn't know about, and she also finds out her grandma has a sister. And after a few days of running the shop, everything's kind of going well. Lucy is handling the deposit. She's not giving anyone else a key. She finds Rosemary dead. Like, Rosemary has been murdered. But it seems that she was dragged into the knitting shop. It doesn't look like she was killed there. But they also tried to hurt Lucy. And Lucy finds out that her cousin also was trying to take the grimoire, which I think is just a book of spells from their family. And she's smart enough to figure out that it was Violet, her cousin, who was trying to do this, and she basically stepped over her unconscious body. But still, things aren't adding up, because who would it be? There's only the tea shop, there's an antique shop, and Lucy does go over there trying to find the book. She finds the book in the tea shop where Grandma hid it to protect it. But the people in the antique shop are super interesting. The owner of the antique store is, I forgot his name, but it's an older gentleman, and he's kind of just waving about these antique knives, and he's not very careful of where he's placing things. And Lucy's kind of scared because, I mean, one wrong movement and he could stab her. And this couple, the owner of the antique store, it's the man and his wife, and they do have a son. His name is Peter. He recently got divorced, and he's struggling a little bit with money. So, I mean, those are other suspects, right? And I think it's maybe a day or just a little after they find Rosemary dead, they also find Rosemary's son has overdosed, and it was made to look like a suicide. After a few days go by, the detectives are investigating. The detective Ian is just wondering why Lucy's always getting into this mess. Why she's always around when something bad happens. Like, what kind of luck does this woman have? And the real estate agent is still trying to get her to sign all these documents, but it looks like Lucy's made up her mind. She's not leaving. She's staying, and she's hiding the vampires, and she's running the knitting shop. She's not good at knitting, but she's good at running a business. But after a few, I want to say it's been like a week, towards the end of the book at least, Lucy is just trying to lock up, but somebody's behind her, and he's pointing a knife at her, which we find out this is how her grandma was killed. She was stabbed. And it's an antique knife. So Peter, the son of the owners of the antique shop, he needs the money because he's going through a divorce, and Lucy just refuses to sign these papers so that that man could buy all this like shopping block And he says he's going to buy it and then just keep them there as they are because he has nostalgic memories. But I don't believe that. I don't know who does. But Peter wants to force Lucy to sign these. And Lucy is just refusing. It doesn't matter that she's being threatened with this knife. So she uses her magic. She tries to get the knitting needles to help, and Nyx, her familiar, jumps. The cat jumps on Peter's head, and she uses a broom to hit him. Apparently, Lucy is a very powerful witch. She just doesn't have any practice. She just needs some practice. Both Rafe and Ian show up a little after she gets out of this mess, but they were almost too late. That's only the first book. Peter does get arrested. And I actually really enjoyed this. Like, I give this a 4 out of 5. If you don't like introductory books, the first book in the series is always sort of introductory. But I really enjoyed it. And I'm gonna keep reading the series. I've both read and listened to it. The person that reads it, their voice is very good for reading books on Audible. She's nice to listen to. If you read this book, let me know in the comments. Let me know if you also liked it.